Hey Reefers, my name is Jeremy Wade. I am the Canadian Reef Master. I'm going to show you my Red Sea Reefer 250 Reef Tank Aquarium, supported by the GHL proflux 4 and cage director, and lit by the Radion XR15pro. We're going to have a look at the animals that are living in my aquarium and the equipment that I am using to support it. The first group of coral we'll have a look at are the Skalemia coral, Homophilia. This is one of my favorite coral. Here I have a button Skalemia. They come from the northwestern of Australia in rocky outcrops in highly tidal surge areas. The button Skalemia is tiny compared to the larger Homophilia australis from the Great Barrier Reef. The genus Homophilia contains the Skalemia and the Bowerbanki. However, it is unclear whether the button Skalemia may be a subspecies of the Skalemia or another species within Homophilia itself. The Skalemia coral are easy to keep, they require low to moderate light, and they love to be fed at nighttime when they put on dramatic feeding displays. I ensure that my Skalemia eat at least 2 to 3 times a week, either through catching food from broadcast feeding or directly spot feeding them. I feed them mysis and sometimes prepared pellet food. However, mysis tends to be the more preferred food. Skalemia have always been highly sought after. One of my favorite has always been the bleeding apple Skalemia from Australia. This coral is amazing and puts on the most brilliant feeding display. The next coral in my tank, which I love, is a green short tentacle Fungia repanda from Indonesia. These have a dramatic feeding response as well. They puff up and then drag their food to their oral cavity. It's really awesome to watch, especially in hyperlapse. The next coral I have is my pink Australian Lobophilia, a recent addition. These come from a lower par area as they come from rocky outcrops and over the edge of caverns where they're indirect from light. They are a great addition to lower par tanks. Here we have an awesome Blastomusa. This runs from Australia. It came in as a few polyps and was one of the first LPS I added to my tank. I love watching the dramatic feeding response. I feed it a couple times a week. Here I have the lower left side of my tank. There's a Recordia Yuma, my Blastomusa, a Euphilia I'll have a look at later, my Skalemias, as well as a plate coral. Here are my other Homophilias, the Bowerbankis. They are in the family of the Skalemia australis as well as Bowerbanki. Up we're seeing here my torch coral, a golden frammer. And as we look into the back here, I have my collection of my Recordia florida. These are a false coral that lack a true skeleton. However, molecular data has shown them to be in a close relation with the stony corals. They tend to be lower light to moderate light coral if you acclimatize them properly. However, they will dissolve away and shrink if they do bleach and don't have enough food. Here we have 3 different varieties of the Florida Recordia. In the back is the Ultra Florida Recordia, and up front are 2 regular varieties of blue and red Florida Recordia. And it's hard to miss the golden frammer. This is a cross between Euphilia Glabransis and Euphilia Ancora. The tentacles contain characteristics of both that of the frog swan and the hammer coral. Because the 2 coral are still within the same species, the gametes are able to fuse and form this hybrid. This is my orange frog spawn, Euphilia Glabransis. I believe it's from Indonesia. I ordered this from the East Coast and I absolutely love it. And this is one of my prized corals from one of my best buddies in reefing at Michael's Reef. This is a Dragon Soul Torch. It has grown quite well, and I'm hoping that we'll get some new heads off it quite soon. And of course I have to have the classic Euphilia divisa, or classic green frog spawn. And up on the right here we have our Euphilia Glabransis, which is a Indonesian or a Vietnamese short tentacle torch. Here I have my green Signorina. This coral was found in the Indo-Pacific. However, they're found in Africa, the Red Sea, the Seychelles, and Australia. They like a shallow sandy seabed with a moderate flow, about 40 meters in depth. So their PAR is going to be a little bit lower than those of your Acropora, and they're going to probably like a bluer and UV rich wavelength to keep them really healthy. There always has to be a brain that runs the aquarium. Well, maybe I'm the brain. However, this brain coral is pretty awesome. This is Tracheophilia jeffrey. They are the only species in a monocytic family. As we pan from the right, we see our green brain coral, the red version, as well as my Signorina. Now, I didn't want to add a lot of things that covered rocks in my tank, so I only added 2 types of zoanthids in this tank, which are the Rasazoos and the Utter Chaos Pallies. Here I have my Micromusa from Australia, or Acanthastria by what most people will know them as. There's been a lot of name changes in coral, and it's a little bit difficult to keep up sometimes. However, you gotta make sure to feed these guys at least a few times a week so that they are able to divide. One of the most important factors when setting up a reef tank is flow. Our ocean is not a stagnant body of water. It is violent and turbulent. I use a gyre pump to create a circular motion within my tank with randomized flow. Under the Red Sea Reefer, there is a small sump. It is like other sumps. It has a refugium, an area to contain all of my filters, and a filter sock. Well, I changed my filter sock out for a filter basket, as I found the filter sock got a little bit annoying to have to clean every day or two. As we look into the back of the sump, you see my phosphate reactor with GFO to control my phosphates, as well as my protein skimmer, the bubble Magnus. I clean the bubble Magnus cup weekly to ensure max efficiency when removing phosphates and proteins from the tank. My GFO I change out every month or 2 to ensure that it is binding my phosphates from the tank. One of my favorite things about my tank is the technology I'm using to run it. I'm using the GHL proflux 4 as well as the cage director to monitor my tank and relay data to my phone while I'm not at home. And here you see the return pump in the tank, as well as where the water flows down to the sump. I filled this up with bioballs just to increase the nutrient export and breakdown of nitrates and phosphates in the tank. And my refugium is still empty right now other than the piece of live rock, but at some point we'll have a little project going on there, but that's for later days. Even though my tank is fairly high-tech with the GHL Proflux 4 and Cage Director, I still have to test other parameters in my tank. I've been using the Red Sea Test Kit series, as well as the Strontium Test Kit by Salifert. However, I usually just end up adding strontium, so I tend to not even bother testing it anymore. This is a great series of test kits, and I would recommend them to others who are new to the hobby. One of my favorite views in the aquarium is from the side, looking in at the front panel of glass and at the reflection of the coral. It reminds me that the ocean is extremely vast, even though this small body of water is in my living room. This view, you see almost all the coral in my tank. Here we check out the left side of my reef tank once again. The Bangkok Cardinal is swimming above my Acropora. This Acropora was sold to me as an Acropora echinata. It has been slow growing, however I really love the structure. The polyp extension is great on this coral, and it often will capture a mysis shrimp and attempt to pull it in. The Banggai cardinal loves to spend time at this side of the tank. On the far right of my tank, I have my utter chaos, as well as my massive elegance coral. Up above, I have a Montipora that is plating and is being tickled by the elegance coral, so it started to grow upwards. I recently picked up 3 SPS from the local reef shop that were imported from Australia. This one is already showing some progress with its coloration. My other Acropora are doing great and growing out of hand. I'm going to have to prune them at some point or they're going to grow into one another. The bright green Acropora in the back is the third of the Acropora that I picked up from the local reef shop imported from Australia. It has exceptional color and I'm excited to see what its identity is to be. I'm excited to add more SPS coral to my reef tank this year as I start to dive into the world of Acropora as I fill out the top half of my reef tank. Thank you for checking out my Red Sea Reefer 250 tank tour. Next time we're going to have a look at my budget tank and see how I maintain this tank. It's cheap, all the coral are under $20, and it looks spectacular. I hope you all have a great weekend and stay tuned for new videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Jeremy Wade and I am the Canadian Reef Master.